What's good, gang? It's your boy Edric. We back to my yearly video, and I'm just kidding, trying to be more active. Today video without a face cam. Honestly, I just couldn't be asked to set it up. I did get a request to break down a specific beat. So yeah, this video is gonna be about how to create depth and make your beat or your simple beat sound more complex. Let me play the beat, and let's get into the video. Let's go.
Make it swish, Adrian.
So first thing I did is just lay down this simple pattern. You can see in B minor, and what I did to start out, I actually started in C sharp Phrygian minor, but then I just added the B note and the F sharp minor here. And as you can already hear, I kind of used a weird sound and I used a lot of half steps. That's also why I started in Phrygian minor, but then I switched to B minor. Then yeah, it's like these steps, they are really simple. As you can see, I'm basically just playing a power chord here, and then I'm just adding got a half step with the perfect fifth. And then I just pitched it down to make it more unique, or have it like go up and down. And as you can hear, it's also just a 2-star pattern, and I mean, I also added like these kind of longer power chords because that's where I wanted to have the emphasis of my melody here. What you can also do, what I did not do because it's heavily processed, is you can play around with velocity and also add swing, but I basically was way too lazy to do that shit. And then what I did, because as you can already hear, it's like rather dark sound, so I really cut the lower ends and kind of gave it a reduction with a high shelf. And then I added delay because as you can see, it's like not a lot of notes playing, so I added quarter note delay just so it fills out the rhythm. And I did use Nexus for all of my samples, and this one is called Burning. It's from the Summer Deep Chill pack. Basically for these type of beats I tried to find like some weird sounds, and then after that I just copied the pattern, and then also here, like as you can see, it's almost the same processing. I just used a different sound. I used a transgate and also just pitched up 1 octave so it's not clashing with the other melody. And I really think that transgates are really underused, because especially if you play these short kind of stabby patterns, it kind of acts like a arpeggiator, but it's also way more rhythmic because it's usually like 8th note or quarter note. Play these two together, it sounds like this. Then here I did add, I think, a press. No, I added a organ actually. And here you can see this pattern is really simple. I'm just playing power chords, and then here instead of using the 5th, I used the 6th, which then creates tension. And my main goal with this organ was just to create a bit of bounce. As you can hear, I also switched up the length of the notes of my power chords, which is like a really easy tool you can use to create more bounce in your melodies. And here I just added, I think this one is a synth. It's also Nexus, which I used, and here you can see really simple processing. It's really just about sound selection, to be honest. If you just select good sounds and then put them in the right pockets, you rarely have to do some processing from my experience. This one is called, I think it's called Arbotron, and it's just 1 note. I just added this one because it takes something from machinery and also has like kind of built-in delay. And then of course I had to add a press sound. As you can see here, it's basically just one note playing, I just layered it with the octave higher. I think it's called Fat Press. Yeah, Fat Press. And yeah, I just used this to create some tension again with the half steps. And also just to fill out the low end. As you can here also see again, I use different note length and then I added the half steps to create tension. For this sound I really was looking for a powerful press, something like more heavier, because all of the other sounds I've used, they barely have any low end, so I just want to fill out that area. As you can hear, it's also barely noticeable, because I also don't want to clash with my 808, because you can see I barely EQ'd it, so some had to make room for my 808, you know. Then I added another trance gate, which is the same pattern as the first two sounds, and this one's also pitched an octave higher. I also used Nexus for this one. Oh no, sorry, this is an FX sound. That's also a really cool tip I can give you to play different pattern with FX sounds. So because it adds some glitchy texture, and depending on the beats you're making, it can actually be a nice way to fill out the spectrum. And then as a final sound, I added this, it's crying female lead. It's from Psytrance. So this also is kind of a bit of a weird sound. As you can see again, I also used the other half steps and then create tension. Tension is resolved with the root note again. Of course, I had to add a bell. First one after 4 bars, I didn't even pitch it up, but I did pitch up the last final bells on my 8th bar. You can see here, this one pitched up by 1. This one's pitched up by 1, and then I just kind of just shortened them so they have a bit more rhythm going on, a bit more bounce. Then that's how the whole sample sounds like together. Of course, I gotta use a hard clap. It's important to have a hard clap. Yeah, nothing crazy, just playing on the 3 of every bar. Then I added like cool counter snare half, it's called Emoji, and then I just played a counter pattern. And I switch it up, I used a 16th note instead of 8th notes at the end here. And then to not make it too boring, because my melody is repetitive, a bit with the velocity. Then I added an open hat. Then here again I played around with the note length to create a bit more rhythm. Of course I gotta go with the chant, and a cool tip with the chant you can do is by instead of doing 2 8th notes behind each other, you use 16th notes, then you just shorten them. It kinda gives like this cool shortened sound, and then I switched up with the normal chant, and what I like to do with perks is just play them in the pockets between your main sounds, like your kick, 808, snare and stuff like that. So they kind of just jumps from between drum, and then kind of, I don't know, you get like this cool bounce. 808 pattern, you can also see I used the 16th notes just because it gives like this short and quick and dirty sound. To still make the 808 hit, despite it being too low, I just clipped the hell out of drum bass and also my master. Then I got a simple hi-hat pattern going. As you can see, I just playing 8th notes, and then I added some rolls, and also added some rolls here. The rolls, these are I think 32 triplets, and then as you can see, I just had the velocity drop, and then I was lazy, so I just copied them over, and then I tried to create a rhythm here, and kind of a melody. And what you can hear, if your last notes, if they're really low on your velocity, it kind of sounds like it's just rolling out. And you could also maybe, for example, these last couple notes, pitch them down. You know, it also sounds dope, but yeah, depending on what you want. And then here I did switch it up a bit by shortening this note. And I did also add this note, and yeah, just to make it less repetitive. And then I added also the fourth note triplet rolls back here and just have them going down. And also, as you can see, the velocity is falling off. And how you can do this in Ableton is really easy. You just select the notes, then you press Control, and then you can, like you see, draw this line there. Then also a really cool tip I can give you if you use the CTM, this high one. And then you just cut the bass notes and only have the high notes playing. And then if you play in a really low octave, you get like the sound. So because usually on the second bar on the 2 you have your kick or 808 playing, but instead of this I used the CTM. Heavily distorted, and what I used is supercharger. And then I just really clipped the hell out of it. And what I used here is kind of a bit of New York compression, because you can see it's like roughly around -3 dB gain reduction. And then it was like some really squashed, so instead of having it at 100, you can hear I did turn it down to 50 to 75%, so it just slowly mixed it in. It's also a cool tip I can give you. Try to slowly mix in or mix out your effects. It really gives you a good perspective on how to mix them. Now let's get to arrangement, because I really was lazy. And instead of figuring out an intro, I just looked for some random sample online, and I found this track here. Just cut out the intro, like this guitar sound, and then I stretched it so it fits. Then I did also take some of the vocals, and I think I pitched them down 12, yeah, and then I also reversed them and had them fade in like this. Yeah, as you can also probably hear, I added a pitch automation which goes down by 4 octaves. And what I like doing recently is using my attack also as a transition sound.
Make it swish, Adrian.
Because as you can hear, I got the swish lined up with the beat drop. So it's kind of also works as an open head. And what I like doing between parts of between different sections of the beat is I just create like these gaps in here, which lets the beat breathe for a minute. And I also usually just start out having all of these tracks playing at the same time. And then instead of adding, I just delete some parts and call it a day basically. And see again, just add a bit of gaps in here. So basically what you want to do is you want to pick the right sounds and put them to the right pockets to create depth. Yeah, also if you want to have your drums hit, really love just clipping them. Play the full beat as an outro. Hope you learned some. Peace.
Make it swish, Adrian.